Hey listeners, welcome back to another episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host Avik, and today we are tackling a topic that hits close to home for so many of us. It's one word, but it's very effective. It's burnout.
Mhm.
Yeah. So whether you are working long hours, juggling family commitments, or constantly pushing yourself to meet the expectations, burnout can creep in. I mean, I had to say it's a slow poison, right? Creep in quietly and leave you feel completely drained. Yes. But here's the good news. Burnout isn't the end of the road. There are practical strategies for recovery, prevention, and even creating a life that feels balanced and meaningful. So, to guide us on this journey, I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Marina Silva-Opps to the show. Welcome to the show, Dr. Marina.
Thank you so much, Avik. It's a real pleasure to be here today. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Yeah. So, Dr. Marina, like before we start, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. Dear listeners, Dr. Marina is an ecology professor with over 20 years of experience in academia and the founder of Orange Inspire Academic Career Coaching, where she helps academics overcome burnout, improve the work life balance, and navigate the career transitions with confidence and the purpose. So, as someone who has lived through the intense pressures of academic life while balancing a family and the career, she brings a compassionate, real world approach to creating harmony between professional success and the personal well being. So, if you have ever felt the weight of burnout or struggled to set boundaries, then this episode is for you. So, Marina, welcome to the Healthy Man, Healthy Life. I am excited to dive into this wisdom today.
Well, that's great. I'm very happy again. I think it's a super important topic. I think burnout is that topic that I feel affects all of us. And the more that you do in life and the more that you want to have that balance, it almost feels that the stress that you feel sometimes could be
Yeah.
actually part of the burnout, right? So I feel that we all need to have ways to deal with these because
Hmm.
it does happen. It does affect all of us at different levels, in different ways, and sometimes even more than other times in our lives. But I think we all
Hmm.
have felt a little bit those stresses at a certain point in our life.
Exactly. Exactly. And also, I mean, burnout is such a buzzword today, as I mentioned. So, but it's more than just feeling tired. So, how would you define burnout? Like, what are some of the key warning signs people should watch out for?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and you're right. The definition is important, but we also have to keep in mind that burnout can be defined in different ways.
Mm,
It's funny because it's one of those concepts, and I feel this is some sort of way that oftentimes explain to my students when they take my courses is that there are some
mm,
concepts that have different definitions, but
mm,
they're and it's actually hard to define, but there are some key elements that characterize burnout. And one
okay.
of them is to feel stressed, to feel overwhelmed, to feel that, lack of energy, to feel unhappy, almost negative energy coming to you, or feeling the pressure, feeling resentment. How do you realize that you are in that moment that yes, you are getting to that wall? It's almost like feeling like you are in between those uh, tasks or people
Mm,
who are asking things from you, and behind you you have a wall, and there's no much space in between you and that wall because you're feeling all those pressures coming. I think burnout is feeling that pressure, is feeling that you don't have more energy to give, and more energy even to give to yourself. It's when you feel that you are a little bit empty, or the stress or the pressure is so big that you cannot move anymore because everything seems to sort of asphyxiating you. And that's how I personally feel and felt at certain points in my life, that
Mm.
I couldn't move anymore, that something was pressuring me and I didn't know what to do, how to do it, but I knew that that was not the way that I wanted to feel. So that's burnout, when really you feel like, yeah, there is something not working here. Well, this is too
Yeah,
much.
understood. And one of your core teachings is about achieving work-life balance. So what does balance actually mean to you? And how does or how can people redefine it in their own lives?
Yeah, the thing, uh, let's just go back again to burnout. There are different reasons why you get into that situation that you feel burnout, right? And one of them is very often because you are overwhelmed, you feel the pressure, you are stressed in that. And the
Mm,
reasons behind that is often related or to work or to life or both, right?
mm,
And that is sometimes the imbalance in between the two, the work and life. But the one common thing that you observe in those is, to me, one big element that affects this imbalance or is behind the imbalance is boundaries, because setting boundaries often affects everything related to work or related to life, and the two being connected because we are just one person, one human being. um, that's when really the burnout eventually will happen. So the root of the problem for me is, yes, we're going to say time management, energy, you push too much, or you feel the pressure from people, you feel the pressure from work, or you feel the pressure from everything. But that's because you haven't set at least one big problem is you haven't set the boundaries. The boundaries with your work or things related to work, the boundaries maybe things related to your family or your life, or other aspects of your life, or both. So the key element here to me that I often advise people when I work with them is, let's review your boundaries. Let's review what is happening there, because boundaries are really a form of self respect. And if you don't respect yourself, if you don't respect those needs that you have, that you're going to leave the door open to other people, task or work, to put pressure on you, to push you to the wall. And that's when you're going to feel overwhelmed. That's when you're going to feel the burnout.
exactly. I agree. I totally agree on this. And like for someone who feels overwhelmed and doesn't know where to start, what's the one small but practical change they can make today?
Oh, you know what? There are so many different things related to setting boundaries, but I think the one number one where I will start is simple. It sounds simple, but it's probably one of the most difficult ones, is learning to say no. Saying no is one of the most difficult things to do, because it means that you have to be able to say no to extra things that you are asked to do for work, or
Mhm.
even from your family, from your
Yeah.
children, from your wife, your husband, or your partner, or from your someone who collaborates with you.
Mm,
Saying no is the number one thing, and we have so much trouble saying no. If just think about this week or even today, how many times you were asked for something, and at least one of those times you were
mm,
considering that you shouldn't say no, but you didn't do it. And that means there is one extra thing that now you have to do, you have to deal with, that you have to think about it, or that you have to do something for. And that's one extra thing that you put on your list to do. And eventually those little things start adding and start making a little mountain, like we say often in Spanish. Um, and then you end having, more issues to deal with. So saying no is the first step that I recommend people to start working on. And it's very difficult, but you can start little by little with small steps, and you can start with small things. Um, when I was pregnant of my teenager son, I had
Yeah.
a colleague who said to me, she said, I asked her, so what would be your
Mm.
advice? And then she had two children, and she said, Marina, the one advice that I have to give you is start practicing saying no to your child. Because once he's going to be older, you're going to have more trouble saying no. And it happens. It's a practice. So when you want to improve that, when you want to start saying no more often, you're going to have to practice with the small things. And the more that you practice, the
Mm.
better you're going to be. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be bad in saying no to everything in life, right? But the problem is like saying no oftentimes has this perception that you are not a nice person. So we feel forced to say yes, or we feel that if we say no, we are gonna be, people are not gonna like it. It's not a good thing. You're not a good person. You're supposed to be helpful. You're supposed to, you know, be nice and that. But uh, I find that again, saying no is that it's just making sure that you are considering first your needs. And if you if saying yes works with your needs, do you
Mm.
have the time? That is not gonna put that extra work. It's not gonna make you um, be a stress, then it's fine. But how many times we find ourselves saying yes to things that we really don't want to do, or that we really don't need to do, that it's going to add to our list. So
Mm.
saying no is my number one tip. Start saying no, practice saying no. It's not
Mm.
easy, but start with the small things, and that could make a difference.
Exactly. That's very, very true. And so also let's talk about the boundaries, like uh, which many of us struggle with, right? So why do you think that it's so hard for the people to say no? And I have also faced the situation like there are situations in life when from inside we know that I think I won't be able to do that. I'm not liking to do it. But somehow we don't say no. We say yes. So,
Well,
exactly. So, how can we reframe that narrative?
you know what? I think saying no is something that we learn. The difficulty, I guess, the struggle of saying no is something that we learn since we are young. And that's the problem. Because right now we are trying as adults and we have so many more responsibilities. Um, that's when we realize that we don't know how to say no. And there are
Mm.
different reasons. And I know you are a psychologist, but from my own experience and from what I read, and um, I, saying no oftentimes is a cultural thing, right? Uh,
Yeah.
I'm I'm Catholic. My husband is Jewish, and we both always talk about the guilty culture. At least for Catholics and Jews, is that you know you want to be nice, and saying no is not a good thing. The other reason, besides the
Mm.
cultural thing or family, the environment where you grow, you again say no. It's not nice. People have to say yes. But also you want to be a pleaser, right? And in work related situations, for example, in academia, We have to collaborate with other people. You get requests of people that wants to work with you, and then if you feel that you say no, you are gonna be perceived as that you are not a team player, that you don't want to help or help the others. Or if a student comes last minute on Saturday, send you an email that he needs a reference letter for Monday, and then you feel, this student needs the letter. I have to do that when it's supposed to be a time that you want to spend with your family during the weekends, not writing letters for students who could have given you that request 3 or 4 days before, and you will have more time to prepare that, right? But then you decide, well, I have to help it. You want to please people. So there are different, I think it's human psychology, and again, you are the expert in this, but we like to please. Uh, we have these cultural reasons why it's not good to say no. You want to be a friendly person. You want to be a team player. You just I think those three are particularly important to me and affect many people that I know, that I in my family or that I have worked with. Saying no, main problem is cultural, or is environmental, or is pleaser, or I just started this job. I'm not going to start saying no to this person. What is the person going to think? I may lose my job because of this. So it's all these perceptions, right? We deal with that all the time. I think those are the main reasons why we have so much difficulty saying no. So we don't think about our needs. We think about the needs of the other people, or we think about what the other people are going to think of us if we say no.
Correct. Understood. Yeah. So, uh, you help people navigate the career transitions without taking unnecessary risks. So, what's your advice for someone who's unhappy in their current career but afraid to make a change?
So it depends on the situation. We have to always think about the situation, and we always have to think about the person overall case, because um, someone who has been in academia for 15 years and decides to change, to me, is a little bit different than someone that may have been for 2 or 3 years or 4 years, right? The longer you are in a place or a job, the harder it is to leave that job. And very often people also have responsibilities, like they have a family, they have debts, they have a house, they have many other things that they have to pay for. So when people do a transition, I always examine the situation in the sense that, um, what is that the person really wants to make the transition? What is that the person is unhappy that is considering to leave? Or maybe sometimes it's just that the person is missing something, wants to add something to his or her career that is not having right now. In academia, we often see, as you know, we do research very often, and sometimes we want to apply our research to other aspects or other areas that are harder to do within the academic framework. So very often people want to do consulting work or want to do community work, and sometimes that may not be as easy in academia. So in those cases, you don't necessarily need to transition, but you may just want to find ways to create time and start doing a side hustle, or have the right connections to do that. But very often in academia too, we see today, and more obvious than I don't know 20 years ago, is oftentimes we have to work in what we call toxic environments, where the pressure that people put on you. Academia could be very toxic in that way. We are supposed to perform, we are supposed to publish, we are supposed to write grants, we are supposed to teach, we are supposed to do so many different things. And we just are simple humans who also want to have a life, who also have family, who also have the same number of hours per day than everybody else. And there comes a point that I'm seeing very often, that people just get tired of that. As much as you like certain aspects of academia, then you don't like the others. And in those cases, after people really have tried that, then we start thinking about transitioning. So the challenge with many academics is how they can get their skills that they
Mm.
have in academia and transfer those skills to other areas. And that's something that we work with people in that respect. So we try to identify how, if you have been a researcher in a lab, then you have skills as a administrator. You have skills for example, writing projects or leading projects and stuff like that. So we work on how we can transfer those skills from academia to other aspects. So yeah, it's a process, but you need to have the right reasons, because what I want is not people to go quickly and try to move from one place to the other, from one job that they were doing for 20 years to something that they not know, they don't know. Because sometimes I feel sometimes you see the pressure of people who wants them to move, and then people get stressed because they feel, I'm not going to have money, I have a certain stability, a good job, and then it just add more pressure to them. You got to make sure that people, the transition is not going to add pressure to the life of these people. That would be the worst thing, if you are trying to move from a job that you don't like to something else that is going to be stressful. It's just not going to help.
Understood. Totally agree. Great, lovely. Marina, this has been such an insightful conversation. And I have to say, you have given us the practical tools and a lot of hope. And thank you so much for sharing your story and the expertise. And before we go, how can our listeners connect with you and learn more about Orange Inspire Academic career coaching?
Thank you so much. First of all, I wanted to thank you for the invitation. It has been a pleasure to be here conversing with you. It has been a nice conversation. So I'm basically mainly on LinkedIn. So you can find me there under Marina Silva-Opps or Orange Inspire Academic Career Coaching. I'm there almost every other day. I always posting tips and new ideas, and you can find there my services too. I'm also a little bit on Instagram, but I'm mainly on LinkedIn. So you can find me there every day. So just have to check for Marina Silva-Opps or Orange Inspire, and you will find me.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. So thanks again, Marina. And to all the listeners, if you are feeling burned out or overwhelmed, remember that small intentional changes can lead to a big transformations. And take what you have learned today and start with that one step, whether it's kind of setting a boundary or taking a mindful break or maybe re-evaluating what balance looks like for you. Yeah. So if you have enjoyed today's episode, do not forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need this message. And as always, take care of your mind, nurture your growth, and protect your joy. So this is your host Avik, and you have been listening to Healthy Mind and Healthy Life. So until next time, take care, be well. Thank you so much.